On this edition of Fulton at Work, understanding your property assessment. Fulton County knows your home is an important investment. With that in mind, the county is on a mission to help you better comprehend your property assessment. Representatives from the tax assessor's office, including the chief appraiser, explain the entire process. And you'll get a first-hand look at how property is assessed. It all starts right now on Fulton at Work. Welcome to Fulton at Work. I'm Darrell Carver. So why does your property need to be assessed, and what happens if you want to appeal that assessment? Joining us now to answer those questions and much more is Fulton County Chief Appraiser Dwight Robinson. First of all, Mr. Robinson, thank you for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Thanks for having me.
Please explain assessments and why one has to be made on my property.
Well, the property tax is the most predictable and consistent source of funding for our local government priorities. And we have that so that we can have this source of funds coming in so that the government can fund priorities established by themselves and by the citizens.
Now, do you assess properties every single year?
Normally we try to. It's all based on what's happening in the marketplace. If the market is flat, then there's no need to assess every year. But in a rising market, it's always best to do that.
And what's involved in assessing the value of my property?
Well, the biggest thing is what our property is selling for. We also will look at replacement cost schedules, land acquisition costs, and for commercial properties, we take a close look at the income they generate.
And how is the fair market value calculated?
Fair market value is based on sales of similar properties. That is the essence of fair market value. What could you reasonably expect your property to sell for based on similar properties that have already sold?
Let's say I get that assessment. What if I don't agree with your assessed value?
Well, the law provides that you have an opportunity to appeal to first of all, to the boards of assessors. And if you disagree with our determination, you have an opportunity to go on to either the boards of equalization, a hearing officer, or to arbitration. If you still disagree, your final step is to the Superior Court.
Now, is the assessment notice I receive in the mail a bill? If so, when do I have to pay it?
Well, the short and only answer is no. Your assessment notice is not a bill. There are 3 areas in your assessment notice. The final area, section C, is just an estimate of what your bill would look like based on last year's millage rate.
How do I appeal that assessed value if I don't agree with it?
Well, your notice will give a clear indication of where to send your appeal to. You can appeal by just writing us a letter indicating that you want to appeal. This can be a free form letter, or the appeal can come on standardized forms, or you may appeal online.
And who can our viewers contact if they need help with their appeal or just have questions?
Again, let me refer you to the assessment notice. It will give you the name of the appraiser who put a value on your property. It gives you a number to call. You call that number, you ask for your appraiser. It usually gives 2 names. Ask for either of those. And sometimes the receptionist who answers your call, they are so familiar with the process, they can often answer some of your simpler questions.
Chief Appraiser Dwight Robinson, great information, and thank you for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Again, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Now, when we come back, we're heading out into the field to give you an up-close look at how properties are assessed. So please stay with us. Welcome back to Fulton at Work. I'm Daryl Carver. So how does your property get assessed? Keith Ehrman, residential property appraiser from the tax assessor's office, joins us now to walk us through the process. So what exactly does a real estate appraiser do?
Well, a real estate appraiser with Fulton County does many things. In addition to looking at what the market data is telling us in each particular areas and / neighborhoods of the county, we're also charged with picking up any new construction, any changes in the parcels, i.e. a parcel is split into two or into a subdivision from a main piece of land. We also deal with exempt properties, commercial properties, historical properties. Mostly we concentrate, I concentrate in, let me start that over. I mostly concentrate in the residential properties right now, and we will list new construction, pick up new additions on permits, and basically in general appraise neighborhoods for mass appraisal purposes, whether to have those neighborhoods adjusted up or down depending on what the market does.
When you're estimating a property's value, what do you take into consideration?
Well, there are many things that are considered. Square footage is one. Also, other amenities that are associated with the house, i.e. pools, detached garages, tennis courts, any kind of improvements that are on the parcel, finished basements, all that stuff goes into the value of the property and how we assess them. Slope of the land, floodplains, noise, all these things are factored into the assessment of the property.
And tell us a little bit about the importance of taking photographs.
The importance of taking photographs are basically so we have a documented proof of what the house looks like on a ground level versus aerial photography. It also gives us a reference point when we get back to the office after doing field work to make sure that we are inputting the data correctly and not missing any data that we might have missed when we were out there on site that we would now have a photographic record of.
Now, I understand during this entire process, you're meticulously recording your research. Why is that so important?
Well, it's important to meticulously document what we find out on a property so that we can accurately enter that information into the computer system. The more accurate the information that we have on the parcel, the more accurate the value is going to end up being in the long run. So it's very important to accurately document the data on a property.
And how often do you find yourself out in the field assessing properties?
Well, that varies quite a bit, time of the year and workload wise, but I would say we probably get out at least once every 2 weeks. It'd be great to get out once a week, but duties dictate that we have a lot of other work that's more important than the field work at certain times of the year.
Typically, how many properties do you assess each time out?
Well, that's going to vary quite a bit on how many properties we assess when we do a field work. It all depends. If we're in the, say, the Buckhead area where the houses are much larger, and we might do 4, 5, 6 a day, depending on what we have to do on those field checks. If we're in a new subdivision, something like that, you can probably do 30, 40 houses in one day. So to answer your question as to the number of parcels we see in a year, I guess, or a year on a day, probably around 10 to 15 on an average day.
So what happens when someone gets the assessment and they actually disagree with it?
Well, when somebody disagrees with our assessment, they have the appeals process that they can dispute that value through. They will get an assessment notice, usually in around June to July, and they have 45 days within which they can file an appeal. Through the appeal process, we'll review the parcel to see if we have any errors and to check what we have on that particular property. And then from there, the appeal process goes forward to the Board of Equalizations and, if necessary, to Superior Court. So the taxpayer has an avenue to dispute their value.
So also tell us about some of the benefits of having someone appraise their home.
Well, the benefits of having someone appraise their home from a fee appraiser standpoint, which is not what we do, would be to have an individual opinion of value based from a certified appraiser. What we do is we do mass appraisals, so we are appraising an entire subdivision or an entire neighborhood at one time and adjusting everyone up or down according to what we find in the market. So I guess the benefits to having an appraisal done on your house, you know what your house is worth, you know whether or not your appraisal is in line with what value we have on the property, and as all appraisals are opinions of values, there are sometimes room for negotiations on the values.
Keith Ehrman, residential property tax appraiser from the tax assessor's office, thank you again for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, when we come back, we're going to learn about homestead exemptions and the money they can save you. So please stay with us. Welcome back to Fulton at Work. Did you know that those who qualify for a homestead exemption can have their property taxes reduced? Well, Deputy Chief Appraiser Duane Pinkney from the Tax Assessor's Office joins us now to explain how. First of all, Mr. Pinkney, thank you for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Thank you for having me.
Now, does the Tax Assessor's Office offer any tax relief for area homeowners?
Yes, Fulton County offers basic homestead exemption as well as exemption for seniors with special circumstances.
Please let us know about one of those homestead exemptions, and can anyone qualify?
Yes, anyone can qualify for a homestead exemption as long as they live in their home and it's their primary residence.
Is there a deadline for applying, and do I have to apply every single year?
The deadline to apply for homestead exemption is April 1st of each year. This year it's April 2nd because April 1st falls on a Sunday. You don't have to reapply each year. Once you get the exemption, it remains as long as you live in the home.
So what are the types of exemptions offered here in Fulton County?
There's a basic homestead exemption, which is $30,000. However, there are exemptions for seniors who reach age 62, 65, and 70. And those are income driven, and you have to apply for those in our office.
Do any of the cities offer exemptions, since our tax dollars also fund area school systems? And how could I apply for some of those exemptions?
Yes, some of the cities have their own separate homestead exemptions. For those exemptions, you need to visit those city tax offices in order to qualify and apply for those exemptions.
Deputy Chief Appraiser Duane Pinkney, thank you again for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Thanks again for having me.
When we come back, we're wrapping up the homestead exemption conversation, and we're highlighting the features of the Tax Assessor's Office new user-friendly website. Welcome back to Fulton at Work. We'd like to welcome in Homestead Manager Florence Brooks to continue the discussion about homestead exemptions. Now, thanks again for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Thanks for having me.
Now, to clarify, if I qualify for more than one exemption, do I get all of them?
Yes, you do. You'll get all the exemption that you qualify for. We have exemption that are based on income, and we have an exemption that are not based on income. But the income-based exemption, you will qualify for whatever your income qualifies you for. And the basic homestead exemption, you just have to own and occupy the property as your permanent residence, and you'll qualify for the exemptions.
Now, how do I apply, and can I do it online?
Okay, you apply for the exemptions. We have 3 ways. We have where you can walk into the office. We have 5 locations. We have one in Roswell, one in Alpharetta, one at 141 Prior Street, one at 5600 Stonewall Taylor Road, and one at 235 Peachtree Street on the 11th floor. You can do the application via mail, and also you can do it online.
So what documents do I need to present when I apply?
To apply for a basic homestead exemption, you'll need to have a Georgia ID or Georgia driver's license. If you own an automobile, they must be registered in Fulton County at the property address. If you're applying for the seniors exemption, you'll need your Georgia ID or driver's license. You'll need your vehicle registration if you own any. And also, you'll need your income tax, your 1040 and your 500 for the state. If you do not file income tax, because we have some seniors that does not file income tax because of their age, you could bring your Social Security award letter, and if you have any kind of pension or anything like that, you can bring that along with you to prove your income.
Also, is there a phone number that viewers can call should they have any more questions?
Yes, you can call 404-612-6440, option 4, and you can get one of our operators to help you answer any questions you have about homestead exemptions.
And do you have any final comments that you'd want to leave with our viewers about this issue?
Yes, I want to encourage anyone that owns and occupies their property as their primary residence and legally in Georgia, come in and apply for the exemption, especially the seniors, because we have seniors that think they don't qualify for the exemption because of the income. But what I always tell seniors, not to disqualify yourself. Come in and let us qualify you. There's something you can qualify for when you come into the office.
Homestead Supervisor Florence Brooks, thank you for joining us here on Fulton at Work.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before we wrap up the show, we want to take a moment to tell you about the Tax Assessor's Office new user-friendly website. When you log on to fultonassessor.org, you have access to vital information such as online appealing, homestead exemption applications, and pertinent information regarding tax parcels with your residential or commercial property. You can also see an aerial view of your parcel and the data associated with it. You can also be kept up to date on all deadlines and news that pertain to the Tax Assessor's Office. The hope is that this new website will help residents be more informed while enjoying the comforts of home. That's all of our time. Thanks for joining us here on Fulton at Work, and a very special thanks to each of our guests. Now we want to connect with you online, so please check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can also watch this show and any other FGTV program at any time on the FGTV YouTube page. I'm Daryl Carver, and we'll see you next time.